Sheltonview and Eve in 3rd grade, and a son who will be in kindergarten next year at Frank Love, before being redistricted to Sheltonview, actually. I've also testified 3 times this past spring in Olympia at the House Finance Committee in favor of the capital gains tax. I asked them to raise my taxes, but spoiler alert, it failed. Our Munchkins are still a little underserved here. Anyway, I'm actually a huge fan of setting high standards for all students. After all, setting the bar low just means they're going to achieve less than their full potential. So I'm in favor of trying to teach the challenge course curriculum to all students. Every child deserves the opportunity to succeed and excel, but there's a problem with No Child Left Behind. It means that no child gets ahead. It's a disservice to those children who are capable of learning the challenge curriculum more quickly and going into more depth. It's also a disservice to those kids who actually will struggle in the challenge courses. Without the necessary support and time from their teachers, we're actually setting these kids up for failure, not success. And in a mixed class, teachers are going to force to either go too fast for the kids who are struggling or too slow for the kids who are clearly eager to go faster. And choosing a middle path is not going to serve either group really well, and that's even assuming that there are only 2 groups of kids here. So I don't think anyone argue that separate but equal is generally a better way to go, but when it comes to education, there's a reason that we separate kids by ability. And that's actually because it's in their best interests, all of them. It's also in the best interest of teachers, because teachers are not going to have time. They're going to be forced to either go too fast for some kids or too slow. They're not going to be able to help both the kids who are bored and those who are struggling. So yes, let's give every opportunity to every child for them to excel, but please let's make sure that we do it in a manner that is at the actual pace that is appropriate for them. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kirsten Centurion. I live in Woodinville, and it was about 5 years ago that I was standing up here for a very similar reason. So I wanted to talk tonight about what North Shore has done right and provide a little bit of a historical perspective of the Junior High Challenge program in the district, because not all of us have been here as the current system was being developed. The current challenge program came out of an effective community process in which staff from North Shore met with a committee of parents, teachers, and others to adapt the existing honors program into something more effective, which would meet the needs of more students at each junior high. That was something that North Shore really did right. I first became involved when my older daughter was starting 7th grade. I have a 10th grader and a 12th grader right now. So prior to 2010, English and social studies were only available in 8th grade as honors classes, and the process for determining placement was primarily test-based. Some of us remember this. I see some nodding. So students had no way to self-select into the classes, and some students who wanted to take honors were turned away every year. And I know those families personally. In the fall of 2010, a small group of us began advocating for an expanded selection criteria or self-selection so that students who were motivated could stretch themselves and commit to a more rigorous learning environment. The administration developed a plan to expand honors offerings, adding new classes annually for several years, and then potentially convert to self-selection. They looked at best practices and they listened to the community. This was something that North Shore did right. In the spring of 2011, staff took their plan for expanded honors courses to parent meetings at the junior highs to get feedback and buy-in from the potential consumers of the product, students and their parents. Again, they were doing it right. In fall of 2011, schools added 7th grade Challenge English and instituted self-selection for 9th grade English and History. In 2012, 7th grade Social Studies came on board, and I think this is the year that self-selection was implemented across all 3 years, 7th, 8th, and 9th. In 2014, 9th grade Challenge Science was offered for the first time, and the demand for challenge courses has continued to grow, as has enrollment year after year. So I'm a researcher by training. I deal with data all the time, and I can tell you guys something, you folks, something that you already know. In the end, best practices in research can be shown to support many options. We can massage and manipulate data to show just about anything. That's why community input's so critical. North Shore listened to us as parents before and developed a junior high challenge program that allowed motivated students to learn and thrive. That's what North Shore did right, and I'm confident North Shore will continue to do the right thing for all of our students. Thank you.
after Timothy will be Mark Ballier, and then Jeff and Jennifer Samuel.
Okay, good evening. My name is Timothy Knapp. I have 2 children in this district. I come to you to review one of your policies with a request to change that. If you would look at this diagram that I've presented for you, the very first one, I thought it would simplify and clarify the RCW, the WAC, and then the leadership framework that has been adopted by the board. RCW defines community, the school community. The WAC takes that further and defines it as engaging families and community. And then what I would like to do is refer you to the leadership framework. I have referenced it, page 32, your tabs, and page 33. And in the leadership framework, we have the reflections component on page 32 that talks about using a variety of vehicles and tools to communicate about student learning with constituents, both outside and inside the school, gather and use relevant data regarding community responses to student learning and their attitudes about the school. It talks about families and community, family to provide feedback, surveys, focus groups of the community. And then if you would go to 33, which is the rubrics, 7.1 and 7.2, it talks about between home, community, and the school. And then the distinguished area highlights open forums, focus groups, and surveys. 7.2, it talks about beyond school, and families and community, engaging community outside of the school, actively monitors community involvement and adjusts. And then it talks about effectively engaging families and the greater community. And this is all about the principal evaluation. The next graph I'd like to show you is the current model that's in place is where a principal, he or she, would present their evidence to the evaluator for an assessment using the rubrics. This information is managed information. It's one person presenting their evidence to the evaluator. And what I'm asking the board to do is to amend your policy 5240P to include an objective, measurable tool that can provide resource material to the evaluator, so the evaluator has a balanced approach of looking both the managed information that's given and an objective information. So if a principal says, hey, I'm engaged with the community, here's my evidence, I'm involved in the PTA, well, there's nothing right now to say that there's a broken relationship with the PTA. Principal can say, I've attended some of the programs at the school, there's nothing to say that the principal didn't engage with any of the students at the activity, the principal was over on the phone. You know, there's a variety of stories that I can share with you. Right now, what I'm asking is that you would amend that. I'm asking that you would appoint a task force to review that. I'd ask district if there were any principals that have functioned in this capacity, and they told me none for 2013, 2014. Not one principal engaged in these resource tools as defined in the leadership framework. Thank you.
Dr. Knapp, I just need a clarification. On your proposed principal evaluation, you asked for an objective measurement tool to assess the community? I'm pretty sure that's not what you mean.
No, I'm looking for an objective resource tool that the community participates in.
So that's different than what's written here.
In my text.
Yes.
Boy, you're catching me. I worked hard on that piece. And could you reference that for me?
It's this,
Last paragraph? Or
no, in this rubric that you gave us. At the very bottom, you say that you asked for an objective measurement
this
tool.
piece?
No, it's this one.
This piece.
Yes.
Oh, to assess the community. My apologies. I would revise that to say an objective measurement tool where the community participates in the principal evaluation. Thank you for that clarity.
Mark Bellier. Thank you, Timothy.
Thank you.
to the North Shore School District Board of Directors. My name is Mark Valier, and I'm the father of 2 North Shore School District students. I come before you here today to represent the North Shore School District community, a voice that is very concerned about a question of policy for procedure happening all over the North Shore School District. I have handed you 3 handouts. The first is my prepared 3 minutes of content. The second is from the North Shore School District website, Policy 5240P, the Administrative Procedure for Evaluation of Staff. The third is the simple addition of the policy for procedure our community is asking for. Events and situations in the past few years have arisen and at a number of North Shore School District schools, all surrounding principals and administrators at the individual school building level that have had a lack of connection or a poor response to community. I find it interesting that the motto of the North Shore School District is strengthen our community through excellence in our schools. There is a growing opinion and concern within the North Shore School District community, putting serious question on that strength and excellence. I do think, however, that there's a light at the end of this tunnel, and the district seems to be heading down. I'd like to reference you to the second document submitted in Policy 5240P. On page 2, you will find the 8 criteria for the principal evaluation. With the current principal evaluation process, it is requested that the principal or administrator submit evidence of community relations to their supervisor, and their supervisor evaluates the evidence using the adopted evaluation rubrics. The problem is that the district is out of compliance with state law, that the current evaluation rubrics do not fully account for the procedural guidelines listed in the RCWs of the state of Washington. Independent community input is a requirement of the RCWs and an objective measurement tool to assess the community that is independent to the submission of evidence to the principal submits his or her evaluation supervisor as it relates to the school board policy for procedure 5240P would fulfill the law requirement. The community ask falls on the handout 3 that I gave you this evening. The North Shore School Board needs to revisit the adoption of policy for procedure and adopt an objective measurement tool to assess the community that is independent to the submission of evidence by the principal. The community supports a creation of a task force to accomplish this, and it's our hope that it's done in time for the next round of evaluations this coming June of 2016. I thank you for your time and the opportunity given to all the individuals that chose to speak tonight. I wish you a good evening.
I have a question. On the proposed principal evaluation, I think I'm talking about the same thing that you brought up, Sandy. It says objective measure tool to assess the community, but that is what you mean. I think we're just finding different ways of saying it, correct? You're
Correct.
looking at something to assess the community in order to evaluate the principal.
Correct.
Okay.
That's the way I
Is that
read
clear?
it.
Is that clear?
Can I participate and add to my clarity of my statement?
No, I'm sorry. I think we got it, though. I think we understood
I'm sorry.
what you're asking.
Yeah.
Do board members have any confusion over that?
I'm going to
I think we're
rephrase
pretty
it.
clear.
We would like to assess the community members, parents, constituents. That's what you're asking for
Correct.
here, in order to
Correct.
evaluate the principal that matches the leadership framework and the rubric.
Correct.
Very good.
Correct.
Very good.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes,
That
sir.
was exactly how I read it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jeff and Jennifer Sandel? Thank you.
I'll just be the first one to say that I acted like a lemming when I walked in the door.
Oh, you are not alone, trust
Okay.
me, that happens
I'm here-
regularly.
I'm here to support all that's been said about challenge, and thank you to those of you who spoke.
Okay, thank you. Kathy McClare, and then Kim Hopper.
It's actually Kitty McClare, and I'm another lemming.
Kitty, I'm so sorry. Yeah, okay.
But I just wanted to speak as a parent of 3 junior.
Would you mind coming to the mic? Thank you. It's recorded and not to make you more nervous, but I'm sorry.
We're nervous too up here.
I know.
My name is Kitty McClare,
Thank you.
and I'm a parent of
3 junior high students in the district right now, all of which are participating in the challenge program. And I know that we're in the beginning stages of looking at this, but I really urge you to keep in mind the diversity of kids this serves. Not every child who needs this type of community is going to be identified by a test. We have huge numbers of students moving in and out of the district that teachers are not familiar with. They may not get identified, but if they want to challenge themselves, it's so important for them to have that opportunity, especially at this age. If we prevent kids from stretching themselves, will they sign up for that AP course, even if they're capable of doing it? That's my main concern, especially as someone who was gifted, went through military schools, moved every 18 months, and didn't get that opportunity to challenge myself until we finally moved to a district where there was self-selection. So lots of important things to keep in mind, and I trust that you will. And I'm really looking forward to more communication and more clear communication from the district on it, because I think that's been a little lacking. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jane Hopper? And Haley and Ashley Hopper, I believe.
We also moved up here from Arizona. We lived in Gilbert, Arizona. It was, if you think the growth here is extreme, we were the second largest, fastest growing city behind Las Vegas. We had 2 elementary schools built every year and 1 junior high every year. Luckily, we had a 30-year plan that had, the land was all bought, ready to go. But when we moved up, we were out there. We had gifted, all of our kids tested gifted. We're fine. We moved up here expecting more rigorous activities and stuff. We did not get into the gifted program, but my children kept working with it. We've done the double jump, we've done the challenge, and that has saved us. Because if they weren't in the challenge, they would be very bored, very not challenged. And so when we hear that the challenge is going to be taken away or reevaluated or something different, that kind of puts a little bit of fear into them, and it puts a little bit of fear into us, because they're very smart. These are the kids that Bill Gates wants. That's why we moved up here. They love math, they love science. And so we hope that with Challenge we can continue on with it. It's been a great program. It was something, when I heard self-select, I thought, kind of had a iffy feeling about that. But as my girls have come home every day excited, because their teachers are teaching them what they want to learn. The only complaint, we've had a little bit of slowness in our science, but they're still working out the kinks on that, and I would hope that they wouldn't put an end to that. So when we're thinking about what to do with our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, I would just strongly encourage from our family that's here, and I have 2 more at home, that we really need to keep this challenge program in place. And that's it. Thanks a lot.
John Hammond?
In the interest of brevity, may I just defer until the next meeting?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Cindy Keel? Kyle?
She just left. She was another London here.
Okay. We're happy to have you anyway. Sean Dixie?
I'm kind of a lemming myself. My first meeting here, so I wasn't sure how this process worked. I have a son in 5th grade Eden at Sunrise, his first year. Another son that is doing high cap in his neighborhood school in 3rd grade at Woodmore. And first I'd heard that this challenge program was even potentially in jeopardy. It was a couple days ago. I'm not as articulate as some of these folks that live and breathe this. They can speak to the advantages of having a class that is differentiated far better than I can. All I can speak to is my experience as a dad, as a husband of an educator who's trying to teach some of these kids in a mixed classroom, the challenges that come with that. And I just ask that you seriously consider keeping this challenge program alive. These kids deserve a chance to stretch. And without this, I'm not sure what their opportunities really are. So if we want to be competitive, if we want our kids to be competitive, we've got to give them opportunities to stretch. And unless there's some better option out there to allow that, I just ask that we keep this challenge program going. So, thank you.
Margaret, sorry, can't read the last. Rachel, Margaret Raw. Real. Tanya Long. Mary Drews.
My name is Mary Drews. I have a daughter that's a 9th grader at Leota, and I also have a 6th grader at Wellington. My daughter chose all of the challenge courses. She's taken every single one all 3 years that she's been allotted, and it has helped her substantially within her classrooms and excelling in her grades and everything that she does. I think it's setting her up to be more prone to taking AP classes in the high school level and not to step back and be afraid to take these courses. My son's coming in. I don't know if he'll take all challenge courses, but I want to know that they're available to him in the areas that he has his expertise in terms of math and science. That's my opinion about those, and I just wanted to make sure you guys heard from the community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Lori Day.
Good evening, my name is Lori Day. My daughter is a 8th grader at Leota Junior High. I also want to mention that she has been studying Spanish now for 8 years from Wellington and is extremely fluent in Spanish. So she's been given that challenge, as well as she's self-selected for many of the challenge courses as well. And I just want to reiterate, not from a scientific perspective, but just as a woman who didn't have these opportunities as a young girl, it's wonderful to see my daughter flourish and thrive. And just like some of the learned folks here spoke earlier about the peer group aspect, she has a peer group that is also in all of these challenge programs, and it's just great knowing and trusting that they're helping each other out and not getting into mischief. I get a phone call and it's almost always to talk about homework, not to talk about what jeans they're going to wear tomorrow. So from my perspective, if it's not broken, please don't try and fix it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mark Landau, and I guess I'm one of the lemmings as well. Lori is my wife, so same daughter. One thing I would like to say is Wooden is in a phenomenal school. The staff there are fabulous, but the facility needs to be updated in the worst way possible. It deserves that. With regard to challenge, I am a special educator. I've been teaching in special education since '93. My job and our marching orders is to have an individualized education plan. We are able to do that because we have para support, because we have smaller schools. I have witnessed what happens when you have a student that is paced too fast or given curriculum that is too hard, and they get the feeling that they are not smart, and that is often not the case. It's a matter of the curriculum and the pace matching the students' needs. The reverse is almost worse. When you take a student and don't challenge them sufficiently, then they start to feel that you think that they are stupid or that they are not smart. I'll take the judgment out of there. And then they not only feel bad about themselves and their own self-image, but they have the feeling that you also are piling on. I cannot understand how you're going to group everyone together and still maximize everyone's skills and abilities. And I can't even begin to understand how the poor teaching staff are going to be able to differentiate and individualize and challenge each student to their maximum potential and support each student when they struggle. If you can solve that, maybe you can make it work. But you've got something right now that is working very, very well. If you want to massage that, twist it, and improve upon what you have, I applaud you. If you're going to throw it all in the hopper and hope that whatever you get out is going to be better, you're delusional. Thank you.
Susan Cobb? Okay.
Hi there, I was also not planning to speak for some reason. I just thought I was supposed to sign in. My name is Susan Cobb. I have a daughter, a 4th grader at Bear Creek Elementary. Actually, she's a 5th grader now. When she was in 4th grade, her teacher identified her as being very good at math and suggested that I have her tested. When she took the test, however, she did not qualify for the EAT program. However, her teacher did spend the year working with her and tried her best to place her in with the other high-cap kids that were in the classroom who had also qualified for math, but not for the full program. The teacher did a great job insofar as she could, but she had very little training to work with these high-cap kids in the classroom. And I heard from other teachers at the school too that they had the district pretty much just placed the high-cap kids in their classrooms without giving them any training or really any advanced preparation time either. So my concern, based on my small experience, is that that the district needs to, if they are going to implement something like this, that they need to make sure that the teachers are well prepared, well trained to take on this just diversification or differentiation in the classroom. And I have my own personal doubts that I feel that it's too much to ask of the teachers. I don't think that, as the gentleman behind me said, that it's actually a viable thing for the teachers to be able to do service to all of the kids in the classroom. The full range of children in the classroom. So thank you very much.
That is the end of the list. For all of those of you who are here to talk about challenge, it's not an issue that's actually before the board at the moment, so it might be really good to hear from staff kind of where we are in the process and what opportunities there will be in the coming months for the community to weigh in and just kind of give us an idea of when this will be something that we're looking at. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. So just a little bit of background. The middle school grade reconfiguration task force has been working for 2 years and a couple months, and they are looking at the whole adolescent for middle school. And someone mentioned in the audience, there's many things that this we believe speaks to, and there's many things under consideration. The task force is comprised of parents, district level staff, and then building staff. We actually met last night and did some work on what will the schedule look like for middle schools and what would an advisory time look like for the young adolescent. We realized last year, about midway through, that there were many things that needed to be done, so we decided to parcel out some of those tasks to subcommittees. So we currently have 4 different subcommittees that are doing the work around the elective program, the academic program, the athletic and intramural program, and then what will the transition program look like for our students. So I'll speak specifically to the academic program because that is the main area of interest tonight. The academic subcommittee has been meeting since June, and it is comprised of parents, parents from the task force, and then also a parent that was not sitting on the middle school task force.
district staff and then also building level staff. We have staff represented from each junior high around the district. And their task is to study the academic program in relationship to challenge courses or heterogeneous groupings. They have a specific charge to garner community input or community engagement from students, parents, and staff. And next week, Leanna Albrecht will be attending their meeting to discuss what that would look like to engage the community, being those parties of students, parents, and staff in that process. The timeline we set out to, we started in June. Our hope was that a recommendation would be made sometime this winter to the middle school task force, who will then sift through that information and then make a recommendation to cabinet, and then from there it would be under consideration by the board. So we're hoping sometime in January that we would be bringing forth a recommendation for the middle school task force.
I have a couple questions. Can I ask them? How many parents are on this committee, this subcommittee?
I don't have my exact notes, 4, I believe.
So it's equal representation, I think, for staff members.
Are we four? I don't have my exact notes with me. I can get that to you in a moment.
I saw one of the sheets, and I think I remember that there was.
Yeah, I can get that for you in a board briefing.
And then I would like, and I don't know if the rest of the board would like, I would like more frequent updates since the board will be voting on this, and it is a huge change in community issue. I feel uncomfortable getting the update as far as here's where we're at. Like when the recommendation is made to the middle school task force.
And I'll just tell you that I've asked for the task force notes to be added to the briefing so that we can kind of track along with everyone else, so we know what's happening as well. So
Okay.
You'll be seeing that regularly.
They were added last week, I believe.
Yeah, and I did see those, but she was saying that there was going to be not just the task force, but this subcommittee.
We'll be
Is
also
that going to
posting
be
the
added?
we'll be posting the subcommittee minutes and the agendas on the website in the next week.
We'll keep community members can find them easily, and we can direct them to it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Heather, I've been looking at the things that you sent me, the things on the website, and going through them, and consistently things say research. But then I don't know what research it's referring to, and I'm having a really hard time finding the actual research that the claims are based on in any of the pieces. Is there some actual research that is connected to it? And am I missing that? Or is that something I could have, or the community could have on that website, the research connected to the things that, it keeps referring to research, and I'm going, well, where's the research?
So we can certainly prepare that and place that on the website. Some of it would be under middle school task force resources, under documents, but we can connect it specifically to the subcommittee and post those articles that the subcommittee is reading to help inform their work.
I think the better the communication, even for me as a board member, then, and I would like to see the research too. So if it's in one spot, I don't know if the other board members are in alignment with that.
Does research mean articles, or does research mean research? Like somebody did a test, somebody
There's
has
text,
data?
there's text, there's articles, there's a variety of different publications that we get information from. I just received 3 articles from the research lab out of Portland. They just sent me 3 articles in the last couple days. So we can certainly, the articles that the subcommittee is reading and analyzing to inform their work and to inform what their recommendation, we can certainly post those on the website.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Heather. All right, again, thank you very much for coming to our meeting and participating in our process. It can feel very awkward because it's a one-way conversation, but we appreciate hearing your thoughts, and we'll read your materials, and what you say is of interest to us. So
Do you
thank
have
very much.
conversations with the board coming up?
Yeah, we do.
And In our last meeting, just in our study session, we talked about a little bit of this, so that should be of interest.
Just before this meeting, you're talking about, yeah.
If people want to watch that video.
Oh, right. Just because you probably haven't seen enough of us yet. All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The minutes from the regular meeting on 9/18 and the special meeting on 9/18, payment of bills and personnel report. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on any of these? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. That does pass unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the 2015-16 district priorities. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on this item?
Larry, I appreciate truly so much. Let me see if I can find you putting together the professional growth plan. It's a public document. I know we're talking about priorities, but
yeah,
there are some overlap there.
Yeah, we have an action item for the district priorities.
But I want to ask a question as they go together.
Okay.
So I really appreciate that. And I just want to ask, I was having a little bit of a hard time because I was looking at the priorities and the growth plan and where it relates to the achievement gap. I was just wondering, are most of those things, because I think that you might have worded them a little bit differently, and I was just trying to look for the continuity between the two, because I thought it was an excellent document, the growth plan. So I was just wondering, did you basically take the things from the growth plan and put them there? Because I think they were worded somewhat differently.
Yeah, I think that the documents.
Does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, I'll try and answer the question. You can see if my answer makes sense, I guess. So the district priorities are really what I see as a reflection of what is the work we're going to focus on as a district in the coming year. And so specifically around the achievement gap, I've outlined a number of things that as a district we'll focus on. The growth plan, my document, is sort of what's my journey, what's my part in that work. So obviously the things that happen with respect to implementation of the ELL task force recommendations or the continued revamping of elementary special ed, those are things that are going to happen. Those aren't things necessarily that I'm going to be directly doing. I'll certainly be overseeing, and they're part of our district work. Okay. So the growth plan more specifically is focused around what are my actions and the things I'm going to do in this year to further myself in that area.
That's good clarification. I didn't think they were the exact same document, but I was trying to see where the overlap and connection was. That was good. But I like them both.
So tonight we have the action plan for the district priorities. I think we already did a motion and a second, so we'll, unless there's further discussion, we'll call for a vote.
I did want to say that I thought this was an excellent document. In the back, on the back page where it says continue to disaggregate and report district performance measure data by gender, ethnicity, income, and special needs status. I pointed out tonight that Native Americans and Pacific Islanders aren't included. I understand that there's a FERPA concern about the small number.
The end size.
But at the district level, at least, how would I know who we're talking about? So it doesn't seem like it would be something, and it's just because that's a particular interest of mine. I would like to hear more about what we're doing for our Native population and Pacific Islanders.
Well, our Native population runs about 0.5% of our district population, so I need it's probably more of a branding question, not necessarily my area of expertise of sort of what's an N size that becomes statistically both reliable to report, as we know the smaller the N size, the greater the variability over there, as well as what's the N size that if there are any special restrictions on a certain N size or representation where we would be prohibited from reporting because of the possibility of personal identification given the smallness of the group. So I can look into that and get some further information.
What I'm hearing is that we just want to be sure that that group is also not forgotten.
Right, it seemed quite forgotten today.
All right, seeing nothing further, we'll call for a vote. And that also passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the district budget status report for July 2015. Are there any questions on this?
Are we indeed at 87% of our general fund going to salaries?
That is correct. It's consistent with all my years here, 86 to 87.
All your years here, when you were here
All
when I
14
came.
All 14 years that I've been here, we've been between 86 and 87.
I remember it being lower, and I think the last time it was at 87, I remember that I was concerned about that. That's the number that Shoreline was at when they went kind of belly up and the state took them over. So I thought we were getting that down somehow, and with the additional funding and taxation that we had, I thought that that would change and go down a bit.
So I would just offer that I think it has been a pretty consistent number, around 86 to 87%, at least during my tenure in the district, because I remember this conversation when I came into the district. So I would offer a couple of things about those comparisons. One, you need to be sure that when you're looking district to district, that you're doing an apples to apples comparison. Some districts, such as Everett and Seattle, contract out transportation services, which may be 3 to 5% of your general operating expenses, or a district may contract out food service, which may be 3 to 4% of your general budget operations, or any one of a number of services. Those expenditures show up, even though they're people providing services because you're contracting them out, they show up as contractual services expenditures. They don't necessarily show up as staff expenditures. So you need to sort of normalize a little bit before you can make too many generalizations about those kinds of comparisons.
Yeah, I took a look at Everett. Their certificated percentage is actually higher than ours, but they contract out their entire transportation department, so they have no salaries and benefits for that program.
What is their certificated?
Trying to remember, I could read
All right,
it.
well, you just said that you looked it up, so I didn't know if you had the number right off the top of your head.
It was over a week ago, so
Oh, okay.
it has left the top of my head.
It's okay.
The other thing I would offer, just with respect to this particular topic, is the district is not on a financial watch list. The state has a rating. We are very solidly in a healthy rating from the state. We're going to see our fund balance continue to grow this year, as you know, and have been informed. Part of that is that our overall budget is growing, and so our reserve percentage needs to grow to maintain the board parameter. It's also that we're setting aside, as you know, intentionally monies for 2017, 18, and beyond as we transition and open up a new school and have expenditures associated with that. The other thing I would add is, as I've had this conversation both with the person who spoke tonight on this topic and with others over the years, the question I always turn back is, our salaries and benefits are people providing services to kids. So I think the more appropriate question is, what in the non-personnel realm should we be investing more in that we're not investing in? Because those non-personnel realms were very correctly identified as utilities, insurance, curriculum, supplies, materials. Those are the non-personnel expenditures, and so I think the question to ponder would be, what are we under-investing in those areas that we should be investing more in? And invariably, when I ask that question, the response I get are things like elementary counselors or later start time, which really is probably staff positions, or you know, mental health
Yeah.
services, whatever it may be, increased nursing support. I mean, the response I get, I guess, to, you know, to simplify it, is I get more personnel positions, is sort of the response I get. So I think we need to approach this question. It's a valid question, but I think we need to approach it a little bit differently than thinking there's some magical number of personnel versus non-personnel expenditures that's optimal. And then again, as I said, you've got to sort of normalize across those comparisons to understand where districts may be spending money on similar types of services. It just shows up as a non-personnel expense because it might be contracted out.
And I think you bring up I like your explanation of it, you know, mental health services. Is there just an optimal percentage that is ideal, or does it just from district to district?
It varies district to district. It depends oftentimes on the...
If state doesn't say there's an optimal level.
No, but they do a financial health indicator where they look at a number of metrics around district's overall financial performance. And within that, we are solidly healthy in the state's perspective, and in our own accounting, our own belief is we are solidly healthy as well. So there's no guidance, no optimal percentage that they would indicate is ideal. I can say, having been in a smaller district that was less well-resourced than our district, had a not as vigorous a capital improvement plan. We spent more money on operations of our facilities, on just general maintenance, because we had old buildings that had lots of issues that we didn't have bond money to replace or renovate. So we spent more money on things that I would argue would have been dollars better spent providing services to kids somehow. So.
When you say we're not on a watch program, could you explain that?
Yeah, so this financial health indicator that the state runs, they have, is it 3 tiers, I believe, of...
3 or 4.
3 or 4 tiers, and
Metrics.
if you are on the, depending on how your district scores, you may be on the lower end of a tier, which would put you in a watch status.
Does that come out through the audit process?
No, it's
actually, sorry. The legislature several years ago tasked OSPI with coming up with indicators that would demonstrate that a district is having financial difficulties. So I think it's been out for about 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Through OSPI.
It's published on OSPI's website. The current one out there is school year 13-14, because of course 14-15 just concluded. So you know, you can sort by district, you can sort by a lot of things, and we're in good shape.
The latest ad at the OSPI site says that we're operating in not close to an area where we would be considered on a watch.
Correct.
list.
There's 8 smaller school districts on the watch list, and we're quite a ways away from them in the rank order. I mean, we're...
Do you know what our ranking is?
It's-
Is that what you're saying, they rank order all the school districts?
Yeah, from least financially healthy to most financially healthy.
It's a 4-point scale, and I believe our most recent ranking was about a 2.75 or 2.85, somewhere around there, which we're clustered with most of the large districts. Our peer districts are in that
Can we
range.
get a printout of that in our board briefing?
Sure.
That'd be great. Just like to follow what you guys.
Sure.
For your question, I would say that MSOC funding that we receive from the state should have gone to MSOCs. If that's the question you're asking people, that would be my answer.
Fair enough. My question back would be, which MSOCs in particular are we underinvesting in?
Toilet paper, if we're asking that of our parents, copy paper.
We're trying to get away from that as we've been discussing in recent months. I think some of that is artifacts of just kind of historical practice, but I absolutely agree that we have adequate resources and our buildings have adequate budgets to purchase those supplies and materials and should be doing so.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Seeing nothing further on that, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is the first reading of resolution number 727, the 2015 bond refunding. And Trevor and company are here to answer questions if board members have any. Let's
asked one earlier that the rest of the board might find helpful on why this particular set of bonds from 2005 were being refinanced. And Lydia is working very hard over there on something else.
I was writing myself.
So I would just say as a general response to that, these are bonds that after 10 years are callable, meaning they're eligible to be refunded and refinanced. And market conditions are more favorable now, so we can refund and refinance a portion of those bonds, and then over the lifetime payout of those bonds, provide tax savings to the North Shore community. And we're always looking for opportunities to be able to do that.
Any other questions from board members?
Do we do this every year? So 2006,
We analyze it on a case-by-case basis. I believe this is the second or third refunding we've done in my 8 years in the district. Oftentimes it's the point at which bonds become refundable and what the market conditions are compared to the terms of the bonds as they were originally sold. And it's a case-by-case basis, but we're always scanning the horizon, or I should say our great folks that we work with are always scanning the horizon on our behalf to see if there's opportunities to be realized.
So the next item on the agenda is first reading of board policy number 2020, course design, selection, and adoption of instructional materials. Board members have any questions on that? And please, if you would like to leave, it's not a problem at all. But thank you for staying.
so was the word supplemental exchanged with alternative? I guess, never mind, I see district supplemental up there.
What was your question,
I
Kimberly?
don't remember. I answered it as I was saying it out loud.
Okay. Thinking out loud. Do board members have any questions before this comes back for second reading next?
So the school principal doesn't approve supplemental curriculums anymore?
District-wide supplemental curriculum is approved through the CMEC process and comes to the board.
It's crossed out here where it says, any school supplemental materials for one-time use must be approved by the school principal. On page 3 of 3 at the top. So it looks like we're just shifting who approves that.
That to procedure in the next paragraph, Carolyn.
My thought is, yeah, I'm here. My thinking, and I'd have to reread this, is that what we're saying is that any school supplemental doesn't come to the board. It is the principal who does that. School supplemental, we're doing district supplemental.
Okay, the school principal is crossed out.
Number 2.
Yeah, I was just
Any
having a hard
school
time
supplemental for
understanding.
one-time use, so what we're saying that is, I think if you go down,
On page 2, there's a
any
sort of-
school supplemental or temporary supplemental material, so it's the last paragraph of that same page, must also be available for public review, but that's where the school supplemental and temporary is chosen at the school level. So it's the last. So what we need to do is create, so all the way down to, no, all the way down to the end of the policy. So we are delegating the responsibility for evaluating, examining, evaluating, selecting all school supplemental and temporary supplemental to the professional staff of the school. So instead of, if it's just a school focused on specific students of that school to meet the needs, then it's going to be at that school level. We'll take care of the district level supplemental that we know fits and meets needs of many more kids.
What is an example of a school supplemental curriculum? Just
Well, it seems that we have a variety at the elementary, or Gretchen? We have some at Wooden, so meeting the needs of some of our learners there, so
or the
it's.
PACE program maybe?
Not so much the PACE, no.
Dual
We
language.
have,
Dual language.
the dual language, correct?
That makes sense.
Right.
But like each school doesn't really pick their own.
If they find that the district supplemental isn't meeting the needs of their, we're trying to really, what the state is recommending is that if they're zeroed in on specific students and their needs, then at that school level with our support, and I say our support, Gretchen and Nancy and Kathleen and Heather, then we'll help them with that. But I'm thinking of some of the online support that I think Wooden also has when they do an after school or before school in the literacy and the math programs. So that would be something that meets the needs of maybe that group of students that would, not so much at our other schools.
And there's very good additional language on page 2, I thought, that sort of defines what each of the categories is, that I thought was very helpful. Any other questions on this policy? None? No, so thank you.
Thank you.
Right, next item on the agenda is first reading of board policy 3418. Response to student injury and illness. Second first reading item. Pretty straightforward. Any questions or discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll move on to the first reading of board policy number 4120, public access to district documents. Board discussion on this item?
Hiring a public records person?
We don't have plans to at the moment. I would say that that responsibility continues to reside primarily with Jeff Sherwood and his assistant. I will say that given the volume of public records requests we are receiving, we are approaching a point where our ability to be responsive and our timeliness and the impact to other crucial work is probably putting us in a place where we may need to consider bringing on a dedicated records officer.
Okay, so is that okay, so it's a potential point. Oh, so you appoint someone in the district?
Correct.
Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean we hire somebody, but we may need to hire somebody.
Correct.
Are we getting a lot more public records requests than in the past?
Yes.
Overall, like what percentage or volume?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but we can certainly share a log. Our log that would demonstrate kind of historical patterns.
Some districts actually post on their websites the public records requests, just as an informational piece to the community who is asking for it and what the requests are.
I actually like, that might be interesting. I don't know if people would want their names out there, but I guess that's public record too. Right? Is that correct or not? Oh,
A request of a public records request.
we were wondering if you were going to come up and speak to it.
I believe the law would be a public record, yes. It's a good question, Kimberly. And we received, in the 14-15 school year, we received 52 requests. I don't have a count for September 1st to date, but we're currently processing, I think, 8 requests, a couple of which are taking hours of staff time to gather the records. So.
Do you have a timeline of when does the law have a timeline of when we get public requests back to people? Like if I put one in